Ms Legalista here. Welcome to this morning's live. It's very early, still dark outside, and I think Francine is sort of headed this way now. I recently did a video about a property here in this state where the homeowner is just living in his property. It's a $4.2 million home in the northern part of Raleigh in North Carolina. Now, I used to live in Raleigh, but he had his house listed for sale. He's still living there, still paying the mortgage, doing everything that you need to do when you own a house. And he finds out that the deed to his home has been transferred to someone else and it's no longer in his name. So I recently did that video, but I wanted to come back and sort of break this down a little bit more because there were so many questions about how in the world this happened. Who is this other party who is claiming to now own this house? And where does he go from here? So go back and take a look at that video if you haven't looked at that video yet. The first thing I want to do is to give you an idea about this house. So we're going to go to Zillow. Let me pull up Zillow so that we can take a look at this particular property here. $4.2 million home in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, I took a look at the deed. I could not find any place where it said he had deeded that property out or that somebody else had owned that property. And I'm going to go to the deeds. We're going to take a look at the documents, the receipts. And, you know, I'm wondering if this person was scammed too. And I'm talking about mindset. I'm going to come back to that. But let's take a look at this property here. So this is an 8,350 square foot property. So you can see the picture here. I guess this is back from when it was initially being sold. Um, Living room area here, open kitchen. You can see the dining room there. It says it's got 5 bedrooms, 7 baths. And this is the property that she was supposedly trying to take ownership of. Well, she's got a deed in her name now, not a deed from him to her, but a deed from her to her estate or trust, something like that. And that was what really got me a little bit more interested into doing a little bit more research on this. How did she think this whole thing was going to work, where she could just go out, find a property that she thought was abandoned and in foreclosure, and then just write a deed from herself to her trust and sign it and give that property to herself? It makes no sense when you think about it, but this is the type of stuff that's going on. These are the scams, some of the deed theft that I've mentioned before, because people now sort of think this stuff isn't going on, and it really is. It is happening to people around you. You just don't know about it. You just don't know about it. So this is the property here. Let me scroll down a little bit, see what else we can find out about it. Of course, it's a single family residence. You can see that it's not that old. He said he'd been living in it for 4 years. It says it was built in 2020, so that makes sense. 2.11 acres. It's got a 3 attached garaged space there. It looks like on the side of the property. And here's sort of the layout here where you can see the kitchen here, that sort of living room that we saw with the fireplace. And the primary bedroom is over here. And then, of course, we've got the real estate agent. I might reach out to him to see if he has some thoughts on what is going on here. He might not want to share anything because this is sort of a mess. And, well, yeah. But this is what you just saw up there. And it almost looks like when you look at the video of him having that conversation with the media, it looks like he's sitting right here. This is where it looks like he's sitting. So you can understand the vantage point of the kitchen being behind him and the dining room over here. But this is the house that she was claiming was abandoned and that she was just going to deed it to herself. This is the home where she thought that this was the thing to do. 5 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, uh, six full bathrooms and 1/2. I mean, look at this, granite countertops. Yeah, you can see everything there. Smart lights, smart thermostat. The things they put in here now to let you know it's smooth ceiling. Well, most of the homes built today are, especially in that price range. You can see Energy Star appliances. I mean, this is the kind of home that you had here. Parking features, accessibility, tri-level, 3 stories, exterior features, has a balcony, special conditions, trust. So now this is interesting. This is where it gets really interesting because here's the thing. She transferred this property from her to her trust. And I said, we're going to go look at the documents now. So now it looks like they have maybe now updated this listing to put this trust piece up here because this is just a mess. This is just a mess. He's still living in this home. And I did a little bit of digging and went to Facebook because a lot of people have things on Facebook and it's public. And it looks like maybe she's out of town or headed on her way out of town, the person who now owns this property. But one of the things she said in the media was that she was going to go back and take care of this, that she had stopped all of the paperwork. But yeah, we'll see where this goes. But this now says special conditions trust. You can still request a tour with Steve of the property here. And I'm sure Steve will probably give you some information about what's going on behind that. He may even direct you to uh, the the media and news reports. I would be interested to see what that says, and I may even check out his website to see what's going on there with that. But yeah, so you can see how much the property taxes are, and I'm pointing out the property taxes here because uh, the Register of Deeds office said there is really nothing you can do. When somebody comes to the Register of Deeds and files a new deed saying, yes, your house is now my house, the Register of Deeds can't go back in and say, oh, well, that's wrong. We're just going to take that out, or we're just going to make you redeed it back to that other party. They don't have any authority to do that. They have no control over any of that. They are literally just paper pushers. You give them papers, they file it. That's it. Stamp it, filed. And you can pull it up in the records and you can see it. There's a history there for the property. So they don't really have any ability to be able to go and fix this on their own. One of the things they said, which is why I'm showing the tax history here, is they said that what they did do was, I guess, along with the homeowner, was to reach out to the Wake County Tax Department and say, hey, don't change the ownership on the tax department records so that it's, so that these taxes are being supposedly paid by somebody else. Leave it in his name, leave it as is. And so you can see there how much the annual taxes are on this property. And I can imagine that, tax bills are going out now. This is the time of year when tax bills generally go out and they have to be paid by the first of the year. And so typically, if you have a mortgage on a property, and your taxes are being escrowed along with your insurance, then your lender has that money sitting in an escrow, and that lender is then going to pay that money to pay the taxes. Now, imagine you're the lender in this scenario trying to figure out what in the world is going on. If there is a lender, okay, $4.2 million house that, yeah, the tax assessment value, though, as you see, is half of what he's selling it for. But again, if you are the lender, you're probably looking at this going, hey, yeah, this is a problem. Can you fix this? Because the lender is always going to want to be in first priority position, nobody else. And so the fact that this person has come in and taken this house over this is very, very interesting. But let me let me get out of this for a second. Where I want to go is over to the Wake County Register of Deeds office because I did a little research, put the name of the person in here who was saying that, hey, I'm deeding this property to myself. And the only transaction I can see where it's this property is coming into her is where she is just putting her name on the deed and deeding it to her trust. I have not been able to find a deed where the gentleman who owns the home has deeded it to her. where the lender who foreclosed on it has deeded it to her, or if she's, because there was this issue about the foreclosure language improperly being included. But what is the deal here? There's none of that there. The only thing that is showing up here is this one right here that's in blue, that I had clicked on here, that you can see in blue, where she is deeding the property to herself. Let me see if I can pull that page up so we can go through this. We saw a little bit of this when they were showing it in the media report, but it was just sort of in passing. And so I want to go up to the top here, where you can see, Register of Deeds, when this was presented. So this was just presented, just about a month ago yesterday. Okay, so this is a fairly new thing that has happened. And it says recording prepared by. So it looks like she, her estate, what I'm going to get into this whole estate trust thing. I'm going to pull up some other documents, and we're going to try to figure out how this whole like sovereign citizen thing is coming into play here, and whether or not she bought into something, and as a result of some of this stuff she's been told, that she now thinks she can just put her name on a deed and take somebody else's property because she saw the word foreclosure that was on something, maybe by mistake, and then she thinks that she can just claim this, you know? And so you've got here this, it says recording prepared by her. It says when it's recorded, return to, and she's got her trust listed there, and where it's supposed to go. So this is a warranty deed. And for those of you, if you're not familiar with a warranty deed, then you're making certain guarantees in the deed. You're saying that, hey, I own this property. Nobody else has any ownership with it. There aren't any clouds on the title. Everything is clear. And let's scroll down here and see what this actually it says. It says this general warranty deed made effective this 12th day of August 2024 between her estate and her trust. Well, I don't see anything where her estate ever even owned this property. She just put her name on the deed. This, as an attorney, you're kind of dumbfounded from a legal perspective, but just as a regular person, you're just kind of like, what in the world is going on? You just put your name on somebody else's property, deeding it from yourself to yourself, from your estate to your trust. And there you see right there, it's listed. You do not see the homeowner's name up here deeding the property to her. This is a mess. I don't know where people get this information from and think that this is something that can actually be done. And just to remind you, he filed a police report on this. He filed a police report. So, yeah. And so it says here, witnesseth that grantor for and in consideration of the sum of $4,445,000 and other good and valuable consideration. Now, think about this for a second. She just put in a deed that her estate paid her trust over $4 million for this. You guys, it's kind of like the whole Chase Bank TikTok thing. People act like you can't go back and look at these transactions and see what happened. So they're going to be able to say, the police, because now they got a police report, okay? And now they can go over to the bank and get access to records and start an as part of the investigation. And it's, where is this transaction of funds here? So now first of all, you've got this allegation that she's owned this property and that she's deeding it to herself. So you may have a fraudulent deed here that's going to be an issue. And now you've got this claim in the deed of a financial transaction, which just looks like fraud. On top of fraud. I don't know how to say fraud on top of fraud. It's just more fraud. But again, where do you get the mindset from of thinking that this is legitimate, that this is a thing that you can do? It says, and for good and other valuable consideration, the receipt of whereof is hereby acknowledged. Oh my goodness. And so there you have the property. And I just took you to Zillow and showed you this $4.2 million home on this 2.11 acres with 5 bedrooms and I don't know, 7 bathrooms or something like that, 3-car garage. That's the property that she has now said she's deeded. So remember, I said, look at the top here. This is a warranty deed. So you are making certain warrants and guarantees in this deed. So it says down here at the bottom, grantor, remember, that's her. She doesn't really own the property. She warrants that the property is lawfully seized in fee simple, meaning she owns it. Okay. That grantor has the legal right to convey the property. How are you going to convey property you don't own? And that nobody ever deeded to you. And yet you're making these guarantees in this deed. I don't even know where to go with this. And that the property is free from all encumbrances except as otherwise stated above. Well, yeah, okay. I just, this, we'll see where this goes. And then, here's the other thing. Okay. So, these transactions, these deeds have to be notarized. So now you've got a notary up here. So you can imagine that as part of the police investigation, because there was a police report filed, that it's going to be, hey, let me call up the notary here and let's have a conversation about what happened. Let's see your notary records, the identification that you use to verify that this was the person. But here's the thing, that doesn't help you determine whether or not the transaction is legal. A notary is just confirming identification, who you are. So look at what it says. And is personally known to me or satisfactorily proven to me to be the person whose name is subscribed to within the instrument. That's it. The notary is not going through this and saying, hey, is this transaction, from her estate to her trust or whoever. You can see here, mail. Look, it even says mail. She even was like, mail the tax statements to me. Like she is going to pay those taxes. How much were those taxes? I almost want to go back and see if I could go back to Zillow again, wherever it is up here in the many pages that I have open. Let's see. How much were these taxes? Let's scroll down here again, because we can see how much these taxes were that she is saying, mail the tax statement to me and I'm going to pay them. Here, let's see, taxes. Here are the taxes. The taxes are $16,000 a year. $16,000 a year. And she's saying, mail these taxes to me because I'm going to pay them. Does anybody believe that she is going to pay these taxes? Does anybody even believe that this is going on to the extent that it is? All right, so let's go back down here. Again, so you can imagine that someone is asking this notary what is going on. So typically that's what you have when you're filing the deed. Now, it looks like she's got a UCC financing statement in here, okay? And now she's got, she's got her first name with a colon, then her last name, executor beneficiary. Okay. She's got her estate list, the organization's name, and then she's got some information here. She's got, I guess, his name there. And then look at what she's got down here. Okay. Mechanical cost. This was the collateral. Mechanical cost, $4,445,000. The estate assets, including the property located at. And then she's got the listing here. It says, upon then shall become a debtor who are bound by instrument of the secured part. Like, can you even read this? Does this even make any sense? Like, this is the fraud that's going on. You get some of these documents and you try to read them and understand them, and they make absolutely no sense. But this is what she has filed. And this is possibly another fraud on top of the other two I've already been talking about. This is just, we're at the third point now where she's making these fraudulent claims, allegedly, possibly. I'm going to put that out there. This is still being investigated, but I tell you, this is unreal. So typically with a UCC filing, okay, so here's what you normally expect with a UCC filing, okay? Say you have your home and you're like, wait, you know what I want to do? I want to now put in a fireplace in my living room, and the public gas company has a program where I can pick out one of the gas fireplaces. They will come in and do like the little install. Now, it's not inserted in the wall, it's one of those ones that sticks out, and they'll run the gas line and all of that. And I can get it financed. I can just make monthly payments. Well, then the gas company is then going to file a UCC statement, okay, so that they can then have a lien on that property because they have now done this work and attached their product to your house, okay? So they're letting the world know when they file this UCC financing statement that they have some interest here, because if something happens, they want to be right in line to get paid. If there's a lender, that's probably going to be first priority, and then something like this is not going to be too far behind. Okay? So that is generally what is going on. So she has stepped in to this home now, wrote herself a deed to herself, to her trust, on this $4.2 million home. She is now claiming with this UCC filing statement that there's some sort of mechanical collateral here that just doesn't even make any sense. I, I don't even know what to make of that. Okay. It is truly unreal here. But this is what she has listed. Mechanical costs. Like, who tells you to do these sorts of things and that this is something that you can do? Well, upon further digging, there's some other documents out here that we need to take a look at. Now, let me just go back here to this page, because remember I told you that one of the things that I did was to just run this sort of search to see what else was out there under this name. And when I pull up this document, and I'm going to let you look at this and you tell me if you think the name on this warranty deed here looks like the name that's on this document, which is also filed in the same county, if that looks like that name. Okay. Now, what is this that I have now pulled up? You guys, I could not understand some of this. I had to go do a little bit more research because it's not something that I am really familiar with. But let me just read through some of this so that you can understand what has been filed here. You have people out in the world saying, you know, if you take these documents and you fill them out, you can become this sovereign citizen person, and you can make all these claims and do all of these things. And here's our bundle of documents that you see here. And if you pay this amount of money for the documents, here are the things that you need to do. And then you go file them. And you are now this, whatever they're claiming. And this is what it appears that this person may have done. That, you know, eh, yeah, they're out there listening to some of this, and then they do this. And I don't think they have any understanding of what these documents say or mean, because I read some of them and I was just like, what in the world? What is this? Some of it sounds so made up. It just didn't even make any sense. So look at this. Look at this. Acknowledgement, acceptance, and deed of reconveyance. Declaration of the Naturalization Act of July 1779. Certificate of assumed name. Act of expatriation. Act of expatriation. I mean, she did it in several names there. Cancellation of all prior powers of attorney. Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. DNA paramount claim. Declaration of political common carry declaration, affidavit of reservation of rights, right to travel and public records notice, notice of intent, fee schedule. You know, I just don't. But let's just take a look at some of this, because it just and look, again, another notary is signing off on this. Now, let's talk about the notary piece for 1 second, because I already said before, the notary is only there to confirm identification. I don't know if you watched the video where there was some property theft, deed theft, some kind of theft, mortgage fraud, I don't know what to term that went on with Graceland, with Elvis's property. And this is why I tell people, if scammers will go after Elvis's property, scammers will go after anyone's property. Okay. Now that is still being investigated, that whole Graceland piece. But it was the notary piece that helped seal the deal to point out that something was wrong with the whole transaction. Because the notary, when contacted, said, nope, I would know if I had ever notarized something for Lisa Marie Presley. And she was like, never happened. Never happened. And so if your notary is now saying, no, this is a fraud, that's not anything I signed, well, all of a sudden your documents are now questionable. And so as this investigation may be taking place with this one, because remember, this is a very expensive property that you're talking about, that you're like stealing away from somebody. I can imagine that these notaries are now going to be questioned, and this person may be questioned also. And I'm not saying this person did anything wrong at all, because really and truly, all you're doing is showing up. People are presenting their identification. You're watching them sign, and you're confirming, yes, that happened with that person. That's it. You don't know anything about these underlying documents. And so for this person here, she, yes. And I used to have my notary, and then it expired, and then I went and had it reauthorized. So I can notarize documents also. All right, declaration. Like, what is this? I, the living woman, affirm and declare that I have returned to my lawful birthright political status as a North Carolinian, and I claim my exemptions as stated under, so did you ever give them up? Yeah. And then you have the notary signature there. You have, let me make this a little bit smaller, because some of these documents, it's a lot of words there, and I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to, like, declaration, like, look at this. This was the one that really threw me. I declare that I am the owner and operator of my vessels of earth from the moment my zygote first formed, together with all DN, and I think that's supposed to be DNA. I need someone to help me. Like, this makes absolutely no sense. None whatsoever. From the moment my zygote first formed, like, what are you talking about? Together with all DNA, I think that's supposed to be DNA, all substance matter in any way associated with me and my incarnation, and I further declare that I accept my divine origin, an honor, right, title, and material interests I am owed. I want people to just be able to live their lives and do the things that they need to do to take care of their families and themselves, and to not get caught up in things that, may take them down a road where they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Act of expatriation and oath of allegiance, it says, is a naturalized sovereign of the United States under the diversity clause of the Constitution, and is the age of majority. And whereas such citizenship was never desired, nor intended, nor willingly, nor voluntarily entered into under conditions of full disclosure, she willingly and purposefully renounces all citizenship or other assumed political status. Okay. Then we have, I'm just going to scroll through some of this, because it's a number of documents, and I'm going to go to a website and show you where some people are purchasing these bundles of documents, and I don't get it. I don't get it. So you've got her name being reserved here. And here's the thing. Let me read something to you, just to point something out. All violators, agents, actors under color of law and actions under color of authority claimed by any corporations, associations, or subcontractors, agents, or agencies or agents of any kind, or like violating or attempting to violate the political status and title order of the grantee at any time past, present, or future shall be liable severally and jointly to this certificate as an affidavit of obligation in the normal commercial sense, and as such is a okay. Does anybody know what that means? I'm an attorney and I'm reading it. So, as a layperson who's not a judge, who's has never practiced law, who maybe hasn't studied law, hasn't worked as a paralegal or a legal assistant, do you even know what that means? Do you know what the legal impact or consequences of something like this is? Those words, the phrases, the definition. Do you know what liable severally and jointly means and what the impact is? Like, you and who else? Because it's really only you on the document, right? So who else are you talking about? So here we are with these bundles of documents being sold to people, and it's very likely that people don't even really understand what these documents say and what these words mean. And I don't, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so you have tons of this. You saw the list in the very beginning. You have tons of this stuff. And so, you have to look out for yourself, even when you're going to spaces where you're buying documents. Like, vet who it is you're talking about and what's going on. Let me pop over here to one of these pages because I want to show you um, some of this and where some of this is happening. And I'm not saying that this is where she got her documents. I'm just saying there are sites like this out there, and that you have to inform yourself before you go down this road and get caught up in some of this. And then the next thing you know, you're possibly over here doing deed conveyances with somebody else's property because you believe some of this stuff that you saw on this website that said you could become this. And what is that? And what does that even mean? What does that even mean? And then as you scroll down, you see what's going on, right? It's let us sell you these and you see some of these were in the bundle that she had, that you saw in that register of deeds filing that she had. She had some of these too, And so they're selling these documents to people as if this stuff has some true value and meaning behind it. You can compare it. You can have doubts, ask a question. Have doubts. What I would tell you to do is go talk to an attorney. Pull those documents up, buy them if necessary. Go over to an attorney. Have several attorneys look at them and tell you whether or not this stuff is really, truly legitimate, or whether or not you are the one being scammed. Whether or not you are the one being scammed. And so you have this woman who has filed all of this over here on the Register of Deeds site. Let me go back here. Let me go back to the very top so we can see her listing here of everything that she had filed. She had her package, and this is what she filed. All those documents that we don't know what they mean. And the next thing we know, she is now, let's pull that back up. She is now deeding this property to herself as if it were hers. And so, and let me backtrack and I'll say again, this is just me looking at the documents and saying this is what appears may be going on here. This 4.25, and and here's the other thing, it's on, that's the sale price. Sale price 4.25. The value she listed on that UCC statement was 4.4. But this, let me just come off the screen for a second. Well, I'll just leave it up there. You can take a look at it. So this is the property. And so where does this all go now? One of the things she said was, hey, I've stopped the paperwork. because there was that communication between her and the TV station, where the TV station's contacting her and asking her, hey, what's going on here? He's saying this is his property. He still lives here. And then you have come in and filled out this deed and deeded his property to yourself, your estate, your trust. I'm sorry, your trust. And it, it's still his property. And so an easy thing that she could do would be just to deed the property back to him, deed the property back to him. But there's so much more involved here, all of these layers to unpack of why this ever took place. So here's where we go from here. Like, what does this all mean? We see this house here. What does this really all mean for everybody else who is out there? One of the things that I've talked about is signing up for alerts if you own property with your local register of deeds. I need to do that. I haven't done that yet. Because a lot of places have that now. They didn't have it in the past, but everybody's coming on board real fast. And now you can sign up for alerts. The problem is, here's the problem. You don't find out until after something has been filed against your property. But at least you can get that notice fast enough before things really go sideways. I don't know that she would have been able to get very far with this, because the next person who comes up, I mean, and even the home is for sale. And let me pull it back up again. The home is for sale, right? 4.25. Okay. The home is for sale. The one thing that is definitely going to happen with this sale is there is going to be a title search, and somebody's going to pull the records to see, okay, is this the person who owns the property? Do they have a deed? And then they're going to see her deed and they're going to be like, what in the world's going on? And so it's not like she was ever going to get away with this for forever. This was going to get caught at some point in time. But for those of us who have properties, sign up for these alerts so that you can be notified. And so in his case, she filed this deed trying to take his property last month. And so, we're a month out from that. And he's already found out that this transaction occurred. He's already filed a police report. The media has already had, several instances of reviewing this and having conversations with him about this. The listing, it appears, has been updated to actually say, under special conditions here. Let's go back down to it. Under special conditions, it says trust. Whose trust? We're now going to ask questions. And I'm sure the agent here has probably had some conversations with broker in charge. If he's with Keller Williams there. So I'm sure he's probably had some conversations with his broker in charge about how to handle this. But if you're the property owner, sign up for the alerts. Go ahead and keep up with what's going on with your property. I can imagine that we are going to start to see some legislative changes here on a lot of parties having to take more responsibility. So it may be attorneys who are crafting deeds, because sometimes we craft deeds without doing a title search. Okay. But we put that on the deed, done without benefit of title examination, so that the next person who's looking at it knows that. Okay. So there may be more requirements on attorneys who are practicing real estate law. There may be more requirements on notaries. I don't know what that would look like. And there may be more requirements on the Register of Deeds office. You may now see delays in filing because they may have to be required to contact the notary, or which in itself, that one, you can see how a fraud can be in every place, right? Because then it becomes, who provides the contact information? The person committing the fraud. So are you calling their fraudulent notary, or are you calling the real notary? So there's so many ways that fraud can be inserted into this process, but there's obviously going to have to be more done with this, just running over to the courthouse and being able to file a document. We used to didn't have to worry about this so much. It was not something that was happening on the scale that it's happening now. So now it's happening everywhere. That's why I tell people it is happening everywhere. If it can happen to Graceland, it can happen to you. Because literally it is somebody taking a piece of paper, putting your name on the deed, having fraudulent signatures on the deed, having a fraudulent notary stamp on the deed, putting their own name on it, and then just recording it. Now, I hear you. Some of this doesn't make any sense at all, right? Because eventually you're going to find out that it's a fraud and somebody's going to get caught. I never understand how people think with some of these financial and fraud transactions that they aren't going to get caught. Now, there are plenty of ones where, where you're talking about wire transfers and cashier's checks and gift cards. Some of that stuff, yeah, some of that stuff, they aren't necessarily going to get caught. They're going to take the money and run. But in this case, where you have a notary who has seen you and possibly has your information in their notary record, and you have already been contacted by the media and so people now know who you are. There's no out here. I don't know what the out is. Like, how do you not get caught in this one? And same thing with the Chase TikTok one. You're taking money out of an account that you set up and provided identification and contact information for. You took money that wasn't really yours, and you don't think they're going to figure that out and come after you and know where to find you and know who you are. And then you're on social media sharing that too. I don't understand how people think that they're not going to get caught. I just really don't. I think they're seeing some of these other things go on, but eventually, you track the money, these financial transactions, especially with an account that you set up with your name and ID associated with it, is going to be trackable. Same thing here with this property, and same thing with Graceland. If you really think that somebody's just going to let you take Graceland or take this property and that they're not going to say anything, they're just going to stand back and let it happen, that this is the one you choose to go after. The same thing with Graceland. What I had envisioned when I first heard about this was that it was not, some property like this. Typically what you hear about, and I had this conversation with another attorney yesterday, is it usually is abandoned property, because that's what she said. She was like, oh, well, I go after and put claims on abandoned property. And okay, that whole thing was questionable too. Yeah, I'll have to save that for another video. But having this conversation with the other attorney, one of the things she said was, I've seen it too, where people are going after heir property because the heirs are now located in different states. They're no longer in that home state where the property is. They're not paying attention to what is going on. They're not looking at tax filings and deeds of trust and notes that may be on the property. They're not looking at any of that. They're not keeping up with it. And after a while, it's forgotten about, and somebody comes in, claims the property, and the next thing you know, the property is then deeded out and sold to somebody else. So now you have a third party who is a victim of the whole scheme that was going on, but unknowingly, because they think the legitimate person is actually selling them the property. And now they have paid for the property. It is now in their name. And then these heirs show back up and say, wait, no, that's our grandparents' house. We never gave the person who sold it to you the right to sell it. So this kind of thing where you're looking at a $4.2 million property listed in North Raleigh, this person is going to have his eye on his property, okay? This is not something you're going to be able to sneak in and get away with, like some heir property where the heirs are located wherever, and some of them don't even know about the property because it was grandma's and you didn't even realize she owned it. Maybe you thought she rented it, or maybe you thought, the lender had it, whatever. This is not that case. So this sort of idea that you think you're just going to walk in here and take somebody else's property, it just doesn't really make any sense, but it adds up, or it does make sense if you understand that this person has bought into this other way of thinking about property, about ownership, about personal rights that they have and what they can do and what the government can't tell them that they can or can't do? Because that's sort of this underlying question. Did this person get scammed into thinking that this was something that was legitimate? I'm tired just thinking about it. Like, this is just wearing me out, just trying to figure out what in the world is going on here. So, like I said, I went to the person's Facebook page. I'm not going to pull that up here. And there were a number of Facebook posts when you scroll through that had been removed. Now, I'm not saying those posts necessarily had anything to do with this, but those posts are now gone. And so I can't really see what those were. But there were some other posts that had to do with things like credit repair and making money and things of that nature. So again, all of this sort of falls in line. There wasn't anything up there that I saw regarding sovereign citizen stuff. And you may need to scroll down. I didn't want to spend too much time on it. I got other things I need to do. But there's some indication there that, this person was maybe trying to find a route of, here are some additional ways that I can do some things for my family and for my life in terms of how I make money. Yeah. But there were one or two of those that were questionable too. And so you have to decide who you're going to follow when you're online. And you have to do your research. And I have clients call me all the time after things have gone bad with a party that they're working with. And sometimes they'll say, the person seems shady to begin with. The person, I just didn't have a good feeling. And then they're out like thousands of dollars after dealing with this person. Or the person told them, hey, we don't need to put it in writing. And so now when something's gone sideways, the client is saying, yeah, I don't have it in writing because they wouldn't sign anything. They didn't want to do anything in writing. And yet they were a company, a limited liability company. And yet they're not. So there are some things that you can look at when you are dealing with other people and dealing with other companies to figure out whether or not this is a party you need to deal with. Now, I always want to make this sort of distinction, okay? Just think of it as a long line, and people fall at different places on these lines. So down here on this end, you have the true scammers and fraudsters. Everything that is coming out of their mouth is to get money out of you, to get property out of for them, to fill their pockets and to empty yours. That is where they are. True scammers, fraudsters, that's their life, okay? Then further down here, you have people who they're not scammers and fraudsters, okay? They just have some business practices that they have to work on. They don't have some stuff right, okay? They need to work on some things and they need to get it right. So, yeah, you're going to see them mess up, get things wrong. Sometimes the contracts don't look right. It's not that they're trying to scam you or fraud you out of anything. Sometimes they don't know what documents they should be using. They don't know what processes they should have in place. Okay. They're trying to start and do something, and maybe they don't have all the information. They don't have all the resources and support that they need to really do it right and to really do it at a high professional level. And remember, most of us, when we're just starting out, it's a learning curve. It is a learning curve. And I have said this, I said this to my daughter when she was younger, even in high school, sometimes she's beating herself up because she didn't get this right or didn't get that right, or feels like, she has to do something better here. And it's just like, if you're in high school, think about it. You've only been putting together coherent sentences and thoughts and statements for about 5 or 6 years. So extend yourself some grace. Well, the same thing here with people who are starting out in companies. There's going to be that learning curve. They're going to get a lot of things wrong. There are going to be times when, yeah, they get it wrong and it impacts you, their customer. But that doesn't necessarily make them a scammer or a fraudster. Okay. So you have them on the end. Then you got the people who are just really messing up in the middle, but they're trying to get it right. And then you have people who are true. They got, they got it right most of the time. But every once in a while, things goes, sideways. I'm sorry, we're human. So we need to put that in perspective and extend people some grace. What I'm seeing a lot of now is people, when things go wrong, they immediately take these people down on this end who are just making mistakes, who maybe don't have it all together yet, and saying that they're scammers and fraudsters when they're not. Sometimes they're just making mistakes. This is some sort of scam or fraud that's going on. Okay. That is the difference. This person deeding herself a property that she doesn't own because she thinks she can claim abandoned property because a word foreclosure appeared on something. And so now she's just going to like take it and then file a UCC financing statement, a lien on the property, claiming mechanical of 4.4 million. Like this stuff is just being pulled out of thin air, makes no sense. And she has no legal right to do it when you look at the documents that she's provided. I'd put that down here on the scam end. There's no mistake here with that, because she has to know she doesn't own the property. Here is this guy living in the property. Now, I could be entirely wrong. It could be that there's something else going on here. I don't think so, though. I don't think so. So, again, keep in mind that some of what we see here in the middle and at this end is not necessarily a scam or a fraud. It is people just messing up because they're human beings and they mess up. We mess up. We mess up all the time. Okay. The people, though, that you want to deal with are the people who minimize those mess ups and the people who try to fix things when they do get it wrong. And then you want to truly stay away from the people down here who are scammers and fraudsters and doing things like this. So I think I have provided more than enough information on this with this house beaming in the background. You can't see it, but I still have the Zillow picture up here. But go back and take a look at that video where he finds out that his property is in somebody else's name. And on top of this property that he lives in being in somebody else's name, he wants to now, get it taken care of. And he said they told him at the Register of Deeds, of course, that you're going to have to hire an attorney. That's the first thing. When he was saying, I was like, well, dude, I hope you've already talked to an attorney because that's what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to take her to court. You're going to need to take her to court. Yes, you filed a police report. I get it. But if you want to get this wrapped up real quick, that's what you need to do. Well, I won't say real quick because we know the court system isn't that quick. But if you want to get it wrapped up, if you want to get this taken care of, you're going to have to hire an attorney. The Register of Deeds cannot take a deed that has already been filed and say, oh, well, we're just going to pull that out and say it was wrong. And we're just going to take that back out of the system. That's not quite how it works. Okay. They are really paper processes. Bring in the document for them to stamp, file, date, put it in the records. That is what they do. And while when I say that, it sounds like a very simple process, they do have procedures in place and they do have things that they need to verify. And so that being their job means that when there's a hiccup, you have to take care of it. So he said he called attorneys. I think he said the lowest attorney he talked to said that it would be $8,000. $8,000. Imagine you have not done anything wrong. This is your home. This is your home right here that you're sitting in, getting up, that he woke up in this morning, probably. And I can't imagine, if it's me, I'm waking up and my first thought is I'm still having to deal with this. Imagine waking up to that every day after finding out your property is in somebody else's name and you're trying to live and do the things that you need to do. And in the back of your head, you know that you've got to take care of getting your property back. The property that you're paying $16,000 in taxes on every year and that he's been living in for 4 years. It was built in 2020. Just the anxiety of having to deal with that. And so, yes, he's now having to find an attorney. He's going to have to file a lawsuit against her. And I can imagine he's going to be alleging all kinds of things. And the same thing happened with Graceland. They tried to have this sale, this foreclosure sale, so that they could take Graceland. And they had to go to court to get an injunction and stop it. So that's it. Again, keep your eyes on your property. Learn what these people who are out there scamming and engaging in fraud are doing. And be mindful of these companies that are telling you, hey, you can be a sovereign citizen if you fill out all of this paperwork and if you buy this bundle. and file all of this stuff with the Register of Deeds, stuff that I don't even understand what it means. Yeah, it makes no sense at all. And don't just believe everything everybody's telling you. Do your own research. All right. And so thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. And don't forget to subscribe, and peace.